There is no study so intriguing and yet so mysterious as that of the early religions of mankind. To trace back the worship of God to its simple origin and mark, the gradual process of those degrading superstitions and hallowed rites which darkened and finally extinguished his presence in the ancient world is a compelling journey. At first, men enjoyed the blessings of nature as children do in an age of innocence, without inquiring into causes. It was sufficient that the earth gave them herbs, the trees bore fruit, and the stream quenched their thirst. We were happy, and every moment, though unconsciously, they offered a prayer of gratitude to him whom they did not yet know. Then a system of theology arose amongst them, vague and indefinite as the waters of the boundless sea. They taught each other that the sun, earth, moon, and stars were moved and illumined by a great soul, the source of all life, causing birds to sing, brooks to murmur, and the sea to heave. It was a sacred fire shining in the firmament and in mighty flames, a strange being animating the souls of men, returning to itself when their bodies died. Ancient man silently adored this great soul, speaking of it with reverence, sometimes raising their eyes timidly to its glittering dwelling place on high. Soon they learned to pray, uttering wild lamentations when loved ones lay dying, flinging their arms despairingly toward the mysterious soul. For in times of trouble, the human mind, though endless, is helpless and clings to something stronger. At that time, they worshipped only the sun, moon, and stars, not as gods, but as visions of the divine essence ruling the earth, sky, and sea. They adored it kneeling, hands clasped, eyes raised, offering no sacrifices, building no temples, content to offer their hearts, full of awe in his temple, the grandeur of nature. For the God they worshipped was nature's God. Some say there are still barbarous islands where men have no churches or ceremonies, worshipping God reflected in the work of his uncountable hands, in the mystery and perfection of nature. But they were not long content with this simple service. Some learned to subvert and twist beliefs to control others. Prayer, once an inspiration, became a system, and wicked men prayed for abundance, wild beasts' skins, and the destruction of enemies. They ascended mountaintops and built towers, hoping proximity to God would favor their prayers over rivals. Those controlling these high places became powerful, marking the origin of the superstitious reverence for high places universal in the heathen world. Then Orpheus emerged, inventing instruments that gave forth sweet notes, enticing innocent, savages into the forest. There he taught obedience to the great soul and loving kindness in harmonious words, becoming their high priest. They devoted groves and forests to the deity's worship, but others, envious of Orpheus's power over the masses already cold, cheaply imitated him, studying the barbarians and banding together as priests. Religion is divine, but its ministers are men. The idea that imperfect men could rule others is flawed, for some are demons with the faces and wings of angels. The simplicity of men and the cunning of priests have corrupted all religions. Priests taught people to sacrifice herbs and flowers, make obeisances to the sun, and worship flowers that opened and closed with its rise and set. The great ball of fire crossing the sky was seen as a savior to those huddled in cold darkness, surrounded by wild beasts. They worshipped it as the symbol of God's power and life's source, for theirs was a worship of nature's God. They created a language of symbols, necessary before letters were invented, but it perplexed people, perverting them from worshipping one God. These symbols persist today among the masses. The sun represented the religion's doctrine, the moon, the church, reflecting its light. Both were worshipped as emblems of God-fire for the sun, water for the moon. The serpent, symbolizing the priesthood, was worshipped for wisdom and eternal youth, renewing its skin yearly. The bull, vigorous with crescent-like horns, was also worshipped. Priests saw how barbarians adored these symbols and multiplied them in a time of great mystery and little understanding. To ancient man, the sun died nightly, bringing danger and cold, only to be reborn each morning, aging and dying again. They measured their world by the sun's seasons, and their religion reflected this. Even today, religions denying pagan connections mirror these practices in ceremonies, holy days, and church layouts. Worshipping the visible is a disease of the soul, which priests pandered to instead of healing. Early generations saw symbols as empty representations, but the vulgar soon forgot. Be God worshipping the emblem itself. Egypt was the fountainhead of these idolatries, where priests gave real attributes to the sun and moon, calling them husband, wife, sister, and mother. The sun became Osiris, the moon, Isis brother, sister, mother, son, husband, wife. From chaos was born Nimrod, proclaimed ruler of the earth, with Semiramis, queen of light and the spirit of darkness. Nimrod civilized the world, teaching agriculture, while Semiramis built fortified cities. Darkness betrayed Nimrod, slaying him at a banquet, casting his body into the sea. Semiramis, mourning, found it through magic and their mystical union, produced Tammuz, whom she fed with her finger and placed in fire nightly for immortality. A later version names Osiris, born from chaos, proclaimed Earth's ruler. With Isis and Typhon, Osiris civilized the world, but Typhon betrayed him, sealing him in a chest cast into the Nile. Isis sought it, finding it lodged in a tamarisk tree in Byblos, grown into a pillar for a palace. Guided by a divine voice, she retrieved it, nursing the queen's child and placing it in fire for immortality. The queen's cry broke the spell, and Isis, in goddess form, took Osiris's body, weeping bitterly. Isis hid the coffin, but Typhon divided Osiris's body into 14 pieces. She recovered all but one, burying each fragment where found, explaining Egypt's many Osiris tombs. For the lost limb, she gave the Egyptians the phallus, whose worship spread to Italy, Greece, and the East. Seen today in monuments like the Washington Monument, Isis's veiled statue in Memphis bore the inscription, "I am all that has been, that is, that shall be, and none among mortals has yet dared to raise my veil." Beneath this veil lie the mysteries of the past. A scholar, fingers dusty from ancient books, seeks to lift this veil. Isis and Osiris, Nimrod and Semiramis were parents of all heathen gods, worshipped under countless names. Their fables entered Greek and Roman mythologies with similar tales of mutilation and lamentation. Men created an evil spirit to explain sin, unwilling to take responsibility. Was Mithra, Brahma, Bao, Apollo, or Jinn? Isis was Venus, Putsa, Saraswati. Egyptian philosophers dictated theology, and Chaldean astrologers named stars, woven into Greek and Roman legends. These became angels, genii, heroes, and saints. Corruption grew, and superstition veiled religions, doctrines. Truth has no mysteries, only deceit hides. Men multiplied God into thousands of names, crafting him in their image, worshipping in caves. Then temples mimicking groves, with crosses symbolizing the sun. These temples were built to display art and power, not reverence, to rule the ignorant. Masses, a superior being views these Roman temples. Indian pagodas, Gothic cathedrals ours. We view heathens, crude altars, offering beast entrails and human heart. Ancient religions, like the Argonauts' ship, were so altered they lost their original form. Priests became impostors, Chaldeans tricksters. Brahmin priests, once virtuous, fell to human sacrifice and cruel penances, training beautiful women to dance seductively in temples, becoming prostitutes, enriching the priesthood. Temples became dens of thieves, and today's spiritual consumerism fills ministers' coffers.